It's the most common piece of kitchen table estate advice in Canada. Just add your kid to the account. It skips probate. One signature at the bank, one form at the land office, and everything passes smoothly when you're gone. Except that in 2007, Canada's Supreme Court looked at exactly this arrangement and said something most families have never heard. When a parent adds an adult child to an account, the law presumes the money still belongs to the parent's estate, and the child has to prove otherwise. That presumption has fueled 2 decades of sibling lawsuits, and it's only the first domino. My name is Nathan, and in this video I'm going to stand 5 of them up: the tax trap, the creditor trap, the divorce trap, and the probate math that started it all, and then tip the first one. Watch what one helpful signature actually sets in motion. Set the scene first. Because the intentions matter. Sourdough is 74. Her husband died 4 years ago. She has 3 adult children, the eldest son who lives an hour away and drives her to appointments, and 2 daughters who live in other cities. She wants everything to be simple when she's gone. Her friend at Bridge told her to add her eldest son to the checking account and to the deed on the house, because that way it all passes to him without probate, and he can distribute to his sisters afterwards. She books an appointment at the bank on Tuesday and signs. She books an appointment at the lawyer's office on Thursday and signs the house, and the accounts are now held jointly with right of survivorship between her and her eldest son. She feels she has done something responsible. What she is avoiding is Ontario's probate fee, the estate administration tax, which runs at roughly 1.5% of the estate's value above $50,000. On a $900,000 estate, a paid-off house plus modest investments, that fee is about $12,750. Real money. It is the entire reason she signed on Tuesday and Thursday. Hold that $12,750 number in your head. It is the domino she was trying to knock over. Now watch the other 5 fall instead. Domino 1. She dies 6 years later. Her son is now the sole legal owner of the checking account and the house. His name is on the paper. His sisters expect their share of the estate. The son believes the accounts and the house belong to him alone. His mother put his name there for a reason, he says. His sisters believe those assets are part of the estate, to be divided, as the will says, 1/3 each. Both sides call lawyers. Here is what Canada's Supreme Court decided in Pecore v. Pecore in 2007. When a parent makes a gratuitous transfer to an adult child, a transfer with no money changing hands, like adding the child to a joint account or to a property title, the law starts with a presumption that the child is holding the asset in trust for the parent's estate, not as a gift. As a trustee, the adult child gets survivorship on paper the day the parent dies, but under the law of resulting trusts, the son must prove that his mother intended the joint account to be an actual gift to him alone, not simply an arrangement to make bill paying easier or to skip probate. The presumption for spouses is the opposite. Assets held jointly between spouses are presumed to be gifted. The presumption for minor children is also the opposite. But for an adult child, the presumption is trust, not gift, and the burden of proof falls on the child. What kind of evidence rebuts the presumption? Courts look for contemporaneous written proof of intention at the moment of the transfer, a signed deed of gift, a letter to the lawyer explaining the arrangement, a note in the file, testimony from the bank employee about what the parent said in the appointment. The evidence courts actually get, in most cases, is nothing. A bank form with 2 signatures on it and no accompanying document explaining what was meant. Without that evidence, the presumption holds and the money is treated as part of the estate. The son loses. The signature on Tuesday did not do what she meant it to. Domino 2, the war. The son is not lying. His mother did tell him the joint account was for him and did tell him the house was his to distribute among his sisters as he saw fit. But she did not put any of that in writing. The daughters are not lying either. Their mother told them she loved them equally, and that they would each receive their share of everything. The lawyers cost $60,000 across the estate over the following 18 months. That is nearly 5 times the probate fee the joint arrangement was trying to avoid. Half the estate's investment value is chewed up in legal bills before a settlement is reached. The family holidays are canceled. The daughters do not speak to the son. This scenario is not a hypothetical. Canadian estate litigation practices report joint account disputes among adult children as one of the most common files they handle, and the fights land almost exclusively in the families that were, in the parents' words, trying to keep things simple. Domino 3. And now, step back 3 years while the widow is still alive. Her son runs a small contracting business. In year 4, after the joint accounts were opened, the business is sued by a supplier. The court awards damages. The son's personal assets are on the hook, and the joint account with his mother, because he is the legal owner of it, is fair game for the creditor. His mother's money, sitting in that account for her own retirement, is exposed to her son's business trouble. Or, in a different version of the same domino, the son gets divorced. Under family law in most provinces, jointly owned assets are part of the marital property equalization, and the mother's account is dragged into the negotiation. Or, in a third version, the son and his mother simply disagree. He refuses to sign a withdrawal because he does not like a purchase she is making, and legally, he has every right to refuse, because the account requires both signatures if the bank was set up that way. Loss of control while she is alive and needs it is not a hypothetical either. Domino 4. The house version, which is worse, because the CRA gets involved. When the widow added her son to the deed on Thursday, she made a disposition for tax purposes on half the house that day. Any capital gain on her half up to that moment is protected by her principal residence exemption, so no tax is triggered on her. But, and this is the rule most families never hear, the son's half of the house from Thursday forward is no longer protected by her principal residence exemption. It is protected only by his principal residence exemption, and only for the years he uses it as his principal residence. Since he lives in his own house an hour away, his half of the property accrues taxable capital gain from Thursday onward silently every year the house appreciates. On a $700,000 house that appreciates to $900,000 by the time she dies. The son's half has $100,000 of accrued gain that is fully taxable, half of which lands on his tax return the year of the disposition. That is a large 5-figure tax bill that would not have existed if she had simply owned the house alone until her death. The house domino is why estate lawyers wince the loudest when they hear about parent-child title arrangements. Domino 5. The recount. Add it all up. Probate fee avoided, about $12,750. Legal fees fighting the sibling war, about $60,000. Capital gains tax on the son's half of the house, about $20,000. Investment income lost while assets were tied up, several thousand more. Emotional cost of the family fracture, not costable. Total downside of the arrangement weighed against the $12,750 saving it was meant to produce, an order of magnitude larger before we count the years of family Christmases that no longer happen. The domino she was trying to knock over got knocked over. So did 4 others. Every practitioner who works in Canadian estate litigation has this same case on the desk right now under slightly different facts. The amounts differ, the province differs, the son may be a daughter, and the sisters may be brothers, but the shape is the same shape and the arithmetic runs the same direction every time. Now the standing section. What to do instead? 3 tools, in plain words. Tool 1. A properly drafted will, plus beneficiary designations where they belong. Registered accounts and insurance already have their own probate bypass. Naming beneficiaries properly, which has its own video on this channel. Everything else runs through the will and pays the probate fee, and the probate fee is not the disaster it has been made out to be. On a $900,000 estate, $12,750 is real, but it is the price of a clean transfer under a clean document, and it is dwarfed by the cost of avoiding it wrongly. Tool 2. A power of attorney for property, which is the tool most parents actually want when they think they want a joint account. APOA gives your child the authority to manage money on your behalf without owning it. They can pay your bills, deal with your bank, and manage your affairs if you become incapable without their name being on any asset. It is separate from the will, and it is the machinery the arrangement above was reaching for. Its full details have their own video. Get one drafted by a lawyer, and get it done before you actually need it. Because the day you need it is the day it becomes too late to sign. Tool 3. If you are still set on making a genuine gift to one child during your lifetime, document it like a gift. A lawyer-drafted deed of gift or a signed declaration of trust that makes your intention unambiguous. Gifts between family members are not themselves taxed in Canada. You can give what you like, but the intention must survive you in writing, or the presumption from Pecore erases whatever you thought you had arranged. Put the intention on paper the same day you make the transfer, or better, at the lawyer's office where the transfer is being made. One fair paragraph before the close, so the never stays honest. Joint accounts and joint titles between spouses are routine, sensible, and covered by the opposite legal presumption. The presumption of advancement, meaning they behave as intended. Joint arrangements between parents and minor children are similarly presumed as gifts. Genuinely documented gifts to adult children can be perfectly valid. The never in this video is aimed at one specific arrangement. Undocumented, just to make things easier, parent to adult child joint ownership of significant assets. That is the arrangement Pecore v. Pecore ruled on. That is the arrangement that produces 2 decades of sibling lawsuits. That is the arrangement worth avoiding. The one-sentence rule to take away. If the goal is help, give access, not ownership. A POA for management. A viewer set up on the online banking. If the goal is a gift, document it like one, at a lawyer's office, on the same day. The one thing you should not do is sign the form your friend at Bridge recommended without asking a lawyer what actually happens the day you are no longer around to explain what you meant. A 2-hour consultation with an estate lawyer costs a few $100s in most Canadian cities and would have prevented every domino in this video. That is the cheapest legal advice you will ever pay for. Book it before Tuesday.